Tired of wondering where your money really goes. At Mammoth Nation, we built what was missing. The America First Marketplace. Every brand we feature is 100% American owned and operated, rigorously vetted for their values and committed to supporting our Constitution, law enforcement, and the American dream. When you shop with us, your dollar stays in the neighborhood, supporting families, veterans, and charities like Folds of Honor. No more sending your hard-earned money overseas to the companies that don't respect you here. Your dollar reflects your values. Your dollar, your values. Your America. Join Mammoth Nation today and be part of building a patriot economy by going to truckersunitedforfreedom.com affiliate page and hit that link. American built, America strong. Mammoth Nation.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Grothman.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservative. It's Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern. It's the Common Sense Conservative right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM, joined by my co-host, Colonel Chris Wyatt in Central PA, holding down his home studio. And, of course, John Grosvenor holding down the home studio there in Nashua. John, we'll go to you first. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Todd. Doing great. Just watching the good people at the state capitol fighting these half-wits trying to put in new taxes. Looking to see them get beat up over it.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. What else is going on up there in New Hampshire?
Oh, well, there's been quite a few things. Of course, I'm not feeling awfully current at the moment, but we're waiting on this thing with Gordon Darby to come through. I guess they're pushing now in the state because the state's not in compliance with the EPA standards and stuff. And the state can beat it, man. I mean, I think you know what I'm talking about, right? With the vehicle inspections and
Sure.
so on and so forth. And so I think the state can beat it because of the deference ruling on SCOTUS, where the EPA made a standard that we have to have an annual inspection when the statute actually says the state must state must have a state implementation plan, meaning they can have inspections in various type of ways. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a annual inspection. I mean, geez, they can have people self-certify, can't they? I mean, isn't that what people do? They have the ELD and they create these electronics, and with the whenever anybody creates any kind of electronics at all, as far as regarding the government regulations and stuff, they self-certify that they're within compliance. They don't have anybody checking them out. I mean, so why can't individual citizens just go in there and then license to register their car every year and go, yeah, I certify that my car has no emissions issues and it's running fine. I mean, screw them.
Because no one would ever have emissions issues, I guess, right?
But you're self-certifying, just like
Sure.
The corporations get to do.
Right. You're saying fair is fair. I get what you're saying.
I'm just saying it's an implementation plan.
I get you, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And everybody be on the up and up for sure. But Colonel
thanks for making the argument to the left for me there, Todd.
No. Colonel Chris Wyatt down last week under the weather. Feeling a little bit better this week, Colonel?
Yeah, a bit better this week. Thanks. Apologies for last week, folks. I've been sick. This is 14 days today. Mostly better now, but last week really needed some rest, so I took a little bit of rest there. So apologies for that. Thanks for you guys carrying the show without me. I nearly was going to be late tonight. We've had the arrival of the first Southern refugees in the Harrisburg area who arrived at the airport. I was going to head there. Initially, I was told their flight arrived at 5, but then I found it arrived at 5:59. That's a little bit later. It made it impossible for me to make it to the airport and back, so I skipped their arrival. They have arrived safely, so we have our first South African refugees in central Pennsylvania who've arrived now. and the first of 50 families coming the rest of this fiscal year. So that's kind of exciting. And just a programming note, if any of my audience is watching this on alternative networks, our guest tonight is not one because of censorship and lack of free speech on YouTube that I could have taken a risk putting this broadcast on YouTube. Therefore, if you're trying to watch this program, it doesn't help you unless you're watching after the fact or you've got the message or social comments or connections I put out there earlier. It's being broadcast on Rumble and on my X account on Twitter, but not on YouTube tonight because our guest will be talking about the COVID scam, and that will get me a strike on YouTube because it's a censorship platform. So just to let my viewers know that.
Oh, I'm broadcasting on YouTube, but I intend to delete it when it's over.
Well, that doesn't always work. I lost my channel over a video that didn't exist because I deleted a month prior, and they still took my channel down.
Man, they'll get you.
So speaking of guests, we have Tom Haviland here. He's going to talk about the COVID.
Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gates City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
All right. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Fox News is reporting Tulsi Gabbard sidesteps Iran imminent threat claim under Senate grilling. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard declined to say whether intelligence showed that Iran posed an, quote, imminent danger threat, end quote, to U.S. prior to the launch of recent offensive operations, as President Donald Trump repeatedly has asserted. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no? Senator John Ossoff, Democrat from Georgia, asked Gabbard during the Senate Intelligence Committee annual worldwide threat hearing Wednesday. And I just wanted to get the Colonel's thought on what's going on in Iran. I think we're on day 18. Where are we right now? What are your thoughts? Was your assessment on this?
So with regard to that, first off, this was a public hearing,
right?
Well, then she is correct to sidestep that. It is nobody's business to disclose classified information that could harm sources and methods. And Ossoff is an ass for asking that question in a public forum. He knows better. This is a question he can get answered anytime he wants by simply calling someone from one of the agencies in or having the director come in and brief him and brief his team or his staffers. He knows how this works. This is grandstanding. There was an imminent threat. And it really doesn't matter whether there's an imminent threat from Iran or not. It really doesn't matter. They declared war against us 47 years ago, and they've murdered thousands of Americans and harmed our interests for decades. They've attacked their neighbors. They're committing crimes against humanity by attacking their neighbors. They're not attacking U.S. military bases in Bahrain and Qatar and Dubai and places like that. They're attacking hotels, desalination plants, infrastructure, civilian airports. They're murdering civilians. This is their response. This is the response of these people. They know what they're doing. This is a dangerous actor, and those who are rational realize that and are saying it quietly that, this need to be done. And we waited 47 years, decade after decade, of presidents after president allowing them to build this massive arsenal. They had 400 plus kgs of 60% enriched uranium that they admitted in the negotiations in Oman that they could enrich to 90% within 2 weeks. That's why this attack took place. And to hear these buffoons and baboons, cackling buffoons in the media and in DC run around like, well, there's no plan to this. Listen, you got to quit listening to Trump. People need to stop listening to Trump because Trump has verbal diarrhea sometimes. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but you do. You just really don't know when to shut up. Well, I'll just take Cuba. Oh, no, thanks. We don't want Cuba. Okay, don't take it. Keep it, I mean, I don't need a vintage 1955 Chevrolet. I don't need that. That's all I'm going to get from Cuba.
He does that for effect.
He does, but it doesn't help. It really doesn't help. Well, we didn't blow up the school. Iran has Tomahawks. No, Iran doesn't have Tomahawks. The United States, the UK, and Australia have Tomahawks. Japan and the Netherlands are in the process of buying them. Nobody else has Tomahawks. I'm sorry. It's pretty clear the data plate. It wasn't manufactured in Iran. It came from Ohio. Okay. This is not helpful. He should have just said, we're investigating it. Because the bottom line is this. They put a school in the boundary of a naval base intentionally and made it a target. Now, the problem is that it stopped being part of the naval base 9 years ago. Why was our target set not updated? That's a mistake. Someone made a targeting error and it resulted in the death of children. Just be honest about it. Instead, we get the stupid cover up. But how is it going? It's going brilliantly. the stupid political comments aside, it's going absolutely brilliantly. Iran was a threat. Its Navy, its Air Force, its missiles, its drones, its nuclear program, every one of these, its leadership was a threat. Now, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas are not getting coordinated direction from the IRCG or IRG, Revolutionary Guard Corps. And they're not getting direction from them because the head's been cut off and the next head's been cut off and the next head's been cut off. And so they're still capable of harming people, but there's no coordinated effort. The money is not flowing to them. The resources aren't going to them. They're not getting direction from Tehran to murder Israelis and citizens of the world. That's one thing. The second thing is that the number of missiles being fired has dropped by 95% from February 28th, from over 350 on that day in response to the attacks to just 30 max on a recent day. They're running out of missiles. And when they do use missiles, because we have total air domination, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. Not a single U.S. or Israeli aircraft has been shot down. Not a single one. Actually, I'll stand corrected. The Kuwaitis, our allies, shot down 3 of our F-18s.
Yeah.
But none have been shot down by our adversary. Not a single aircraft. This is unprecedented in the history of warfare. We have total domination of the Iranian airspace. No civilian aircraft fly over it. So anything that happens there, we have planes on air cap missions flying safely, not worried about tone lock or firing countermeasures for a missile coming at them because there's nothing coming at them, flying, whatever they want all over the airspace. And the moment that a launcher comes out, they get vectored and they launch a missile and they take it out. So the Iranians are holding back what few missiles they have to go after political targets when it's necessary. In addition to that, their drones have gone from 800 attacks in one day down to just about 50 or 75 in one day. They're running out of drones. Their drone ship is at the bottom of the Arabian Gulf. And yes, I called it the Arabian Gulf intentionally, not the Persian Gulf. The entire capacity of Iran to harm its neighbors has been obliterated. And now we're going after key infrastructure, and the Israelis every day take out a new leader, take out another leader, take out another leader. This thing is going brilliantly. Now, people ask me when the war started, how long will it last? And I said, well, 6 weeks minimum. It'll take that long to degrade the Iranian capabilities and achieve the outcome that Trump is asking for. But then he changed the end state. He said regime change, or unconditional surrender, I should say, unconditional surrender. Well, unconditional surrender is going to take a bit more pummeling. And I said, now it's going to go at least 8 weeks. And people are like, why 8 weeks? I said, well, because after 60 days, the War Powers Act kicks in and Congress is not going to authorize the use of force. Or if they do, it's going to be hard to get. So this will be over in 6 to 8 weeks. And that's the bottom line. Plus, if it drags out, we start to get into the summer in the Middle East, and then we have performance issues with high-performance aircraft and with weapon systems, with the heat, and so it becomes a challenge. So much like the Gulf War, there will be a rush for this thing to end. It's not coincidental that when we attack in the Middle East, we do it in January and February. People should pay attention to that. It's not a coincidence because by May, it's Hades in the Middle East. That's why I don't live there. It sucks.
Yeah, a little hot, is it? So, your original statement or question there, Todd, about Tulsi Gabbard being asked if they were an imminent threat. And truthfully, to my understanding, that's not her job to determine whether they're an imminent threat. She's there to advise the president. It's his job to make that determination, isn't it? I mean, I'm not wrong, am I?
Well, she did defer and say the president makes that determination. But she can give the advice, but she's not going to tell the world how the advice flows or anything like that,
right?
Or what the decision-making process is, nor should she in a public setting, like the Colonel said.
Right. It's classified information, and he's trying to get her to disclose classified information. Will jeopardize the source of it. Look, guys, let me explain to you how important intelligence sources are. Do you all remember the cell phone episode when the Israeli intelligence services blew up all these Hezbollah leaders and these terrorists all over the Middle East by simply blowing up explosive devices that were placed in their telephones? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That was the most successful intelligence and / operation probably in history. It was incredible what they did. They did that because they had sources. They had people close to all of these people, and that's an incredible human intelligence network. Now they have an incredible human intelligence network on the ground. They keep finding these Iranian leaders, not because they're broadcasting, not because they're using mobile phones, not because they're on the radio, but because people are dropping dimes on them. And then the Israelis are dropping ordnance on them. You cannot compromise those sources.
You drop a dime, we'll drop ordnance. I love that. That's a good idea.
Well, that's a phrase I just came up with. They're dropping dimes and we're dropping ordnance. No, look, I mean, this human intelligence network the Israelis have built over the past half century is absolutely incredible. Remember that Israel is full of Jews from Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, Tunisia, all over the Middle East, all these Jews who returned to Israel. And so they know the environments, they know the people, they have ties, and they exploit them. And with good outcomes for Israelis' national defense. But listen, can you imagine if, in fact, Iran was within 2 weeks of enriching that uranium? That means they would have been within a month of loading that onto ICBMs and firing them into Israel and irradiating the entire Middle East. These people, they're Trump derangement syndrome. They need to dig their heads out of their fourth point of contact and realize what we've just stopped from happening.
It's not just Israel. They hate the United States of America.
They hate Saudi Arabia. They will launch these at Riyadh.
Yeah.
No, but they can't reach America yet. But they could put them on a cargo ship and then float the cargo ship off the west or east coast and launch them from there. Mm-hmm. But no, they can't reach us from Iran. But that doesn't mean they can't hit us. I mean, it's Hollywood makes movies that aren't that far fetched. You remember what's that one with where the Tom Clancy movie? It was Morgan Freeman played the president and
some of all.
Yeah,
he was national security advisor. Yeah,
but Ben Affleck played the Tom Clancy character. It was pretty lame, but I mean that's not beyond the realm of possibility. What happened there, where they blew up Baltimore?
Right. Yeah, and that was just like what is called a suitcase nuke, basically. It was in a cigarette machine there. Yeah,
dirty bomb or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take much to do this, and that's what that enriched uranium is for. These people can never be allowed to have that. They never should have been allowed to build such. Look, I mean, people seem to forget. The Iranians in September, October of 2024 launched thousands of missiles at Israeli civilian sites with no provocation. Mm-hmm. Israel did nothing to Iran. They just launched them out of the blue. And, and then talking about, and then Israel attacked, in 2025, they attacked Iran, but that was in response months later. These people are evil people. They're nasty. And they just murdered 30,000 of their own citizens and no one's up in arms about that. I mean, what's going on here?
The most amazing thing to me, Chris, is Iran is a terrorist state funding other terrorist states, and they're part of the United Nations, and they're allowed to be part of the United Nations.
Well, they're on the Human Rights Council. They execute people for being homosexuals. They murder women for extramarital affairs. I mean, these aren't people believing in human rights. That's why we left the UN Human Rights Council, because it's a joke. It's a farce.
Mm-hmm. That's why Trump's like, hey, you know what? UN's no good anymore. And people want to know why. Well, there's why. They don't do anything. Right. They're ineffective. They don't do anything. They're nonsensical. I mean, World Health Organization basically decided with Freud. What'd you call him, Chris? Freudchi?
Dr. Fraud. Look, we used to have a few elements of the United Nations that actually contributed to humanity. UNESCO, the Scientific Culture Organization, the WHO was a reliable institution before COVID. Help eradicate smallpox in the wild. I mean, it still exists in freezers in the Soviet Union and in cadavers buried in the Taiga, and also in CDC in Atlanta and USAMRIID. But in the wild, smallpox is wiped out, and we were in the process of wiping out polio, and nearly wiped out polio. But Islam ruined that one for us, and people took it from Nigeria, refused to get vaccinated, spread it through the Hajj, and now polio has popped up in several countries around the world where it's becoming endemic again. We're trying to wipe it out, but there was a time when the World Health Organization was a useful body for humanity. And like I said, UNESCO, and there are other parts of UN that actually served a purpose. But United Nations is a jobs program for people who have no skills. That's the bottom line.
Right. For sure.
There are NGOs that can apply with the United Nations too to become advisors or something like that. You see, like with the lesbian, what the LGBTQ alphabet, whatever, they have an organization there with the United Nations. They do have an organization that's for family or parental rights. He's got something there. So there are things people can do to be effectual with the United Nations, I guess, if you're willing to organize and apply.
Look, the most use I've ever gotten out of the United Nations was watching North by Northwest with my cousin Cary Grant when he went to the UN headquarters. That's the most useful part of the UN I've ever seen. a cameo in a 1957 movie.
Right. Yeah. Was that Hitchcock, I think, right?
Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah. He North by Northwest. And as usual, he had a cameo where he was getting on a bus in that.
Yeah, he always had something. Yeah.
North by Northwest is one of my all-time favorite movies. North by Northwest. Another one, of course, is The Maltese Falcon. And that's just a fantastic one. And then Casablanca, which I refused to watch for years. And wow, I love that movie. What a great movie. Here's looking at you, kid. Yep. So anyway.
I've got a question for you, Chris. I don't know if you've heard about this radio broadcast that came out of somewhere, I think in Eastern Europe. They were just broadcasting numbers and
a number station.
Persian. Yeah. It started February 28th, just when this war started, and they were broadcasting numbers. And I think the idea is they were broadcasting codes to Iran, and they discovered this signal and jammed it. So they just switched frequencies and continued broadcasting, but they are doing it in Persian. So I just wonder if you knew anything about it and if you had any thoughts on it that you may like to elaborate.
I'm not familiar with the story, but I would not be surprised if they're using Farsi to transmit information to sleeper cells around the world. That would probably be my expectation, using shortwave communications. That's probably what it is. Yeah,
it is shortwave. Yes,
that would be my expectation. Yeah, well, you can stop that, but it can just pop up anywhere. Anyone that works in a cell who has the information can get a shortwave transmitter and just start transmitting around the world. So it's kind of hard to just eliminate that.
Right.
If it's coming out of Iran, that's not going to be too hard. We can pick up the signal and we can fire a missile at where that transmitter is and put an end to that. But then there'll probably another one. Look, I mean, that's just a danger here. While the United States is in a situation where our Transportation Security Administration officials aren't being paid, and we're having 3 and 4 hour lines at airports because of the demon rats who refuse to fund DHS. These same people are happy to fund, and they did fund last summer, the Voice of America, our propaganda outlet, which we use to influence opinion around the world. They funded that to the tune of $260 million. So they're willing to interfere with, the views of people around the planet, but not protect American citizens at home. I think that, it is time, to go and just, pull the plug on the Potomac and suck all this bilge right out of the Capitol building and right on down to the Chesapeake Bay and right out to the Atlantic Ocean. Virtually nobody that sits in Congress has any business being there. There's almost no patriots left in that body.
Right.
These people will approve anything. Can you believe that they want to fund the Voice of America, but not fund TSA agents to protect people at airports when we've already had multiple terror-related attacks in this country? In Michigan, in Virginia, we had a lieutenant colonel, combat veteran, 600 hours in an aircraft, murdered as an assistant or a professor of military science at Old Dominion University, murdered. And this is something that they will not fund to protect Americans. They're keeping us defenseless in our homes. And now the Virginia Democrats, gentlemen, I don't know if you're paying attention to this.
Yeah, I saw it.
But these idiots, so they ran on affordability, this cooked up bogus nonsense, blaming Trump for the doubling of prices during Joe Biden's crooked regime when everything doubled in price, and they lied to us and said inflation was 3%. Funny how we got an 8.5% COLA increase 1 year during that time when they finally had to admit that it was a lot worse than they claimed. They blamed Trump for the price of eggs a week after he becomes president when it was $9 a carton because they murdered 60,000 hens laying eggs because of their so-called bird influenza, which was a scam too. Mm-hmm. So they blame Trump for this, and they ride into the coattails of Virginia Assembly in Richmond on affordability. And what do? They raise payroll taxes on every single Virginian. Payroll taxes. What else they do? They banned free speech. They made it illegal in Virginia to talk about January 6th unless you call it an insurrection, which it wasn't. So they've censored free speech in schools. And then the third thing they're doing now, they're trying to disarm members of Virginia, saying they don't need handguns. And then the argument is they actually have the audacity to stand up and say, well, except there'll be an exemption for members of the legislature because our lives are in danger.
Of course.
And the guy says, well, we walk out here to the park garage, and we're in danger. Every day in America, Americans are attacked in park garages because the remoteness, the darkness, the hidden, the way that people can attack people. It happens every day across the country. Women, especially women assaulted, sexually assaulted, raped, murdered in parking garages every day. And how do most of these women protect themselves? With firearms. The Virginia legislature wants to disarm Virginia women so they become victims of assault and rape and murder. These people are demonic. You morons in Virginia who voted for this garbage that will raise your taxes, that will censor your speech and disarm you so that the criminals can have at you. You deserve what you get. I will never live in Virginia. It's not for lovers. It's for leftists. Virginia is for leftists.
It used to be a fine state at one time, but yeah, you're right. It's really gone downhill through the years.
Oh,
California right over top of the Virginia. I mean, California 2.0, I guess.
But you know why this is? Because the bedroom communities, the bedroom communities of Loudoun County and that side, all of that right there are flooded with leftists who work in the government, suckling off the taxpayers' teat, doing nothing, accomplishing nothing, but drawing money out of our economy, and then having their high and mighty attitudes where they think they're better than other people, and they decide that girls can participate in boys' sports, that that we can have whatever pronouns we want, corrupting the English language, and these morons who contribute nothing to the private sector sit over there. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't good people working in the government. We got fantastic people working in government, but plenty of these people. And then their ilk and their offspring, who they raise with corrupted values, enter society and have the same attitudes. The same entitled, privileged little princesses who get arrested at spring break in Florida, and then, for their behavior, drinking underage and acting like fools, and trying to attack the cops and run from the cops. These are the same people, and this is the rot that is in our society. It is in our society. We must excise it. It is time to start disciplining children again. It is time to start holding parents accountable. And if you're in Walmart and the little heathens are running around knocking stuff off the shelves and the parents are standing there doing nothing, and you don't say something, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. Every time I see those little heathens pulling that crap, I say something. And occasionally the parents are like, hey, who are you? Well, I'm somebody that's not going to pay extra for my goods because you let your little beastards, it begins with an A, run around here and destroy property, causing me to pay more in this store. So get control of your children or leave the store. I've done that before. And people are like, oh, who are you? Well, I am who I am. Discipline your children or leave the store.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to pay too much for sure. Hey, have you been paying attention to any of the DHS secretary confirmation hearings by chance for Mark Wayne Mullen?
Oh my God, Rand Paul and Mark Mullen, and who was the other one there? Was trying to give him grief too. They are really trying to challenge this guy.
So, look, yes. I don't know that Mark Wayne Mullen is the right pick. I didn't know that when they went with him to start with. I mean, I think we should pick someone that's not in the Senate, pick someone from outside government to come in and do that. He's got the skills. That's my take on it. But here's the thing. Rand Paul is allowing his personal feelings to interfere with this election. He is making this very personal, and he should recuse himself. He has no business commenting on this. That's my view on it, because he's taking a personal matter where his feelings are hurt, and he's right to be upset. But he's wrong to interject this into confirmation hearings. He's flat out wrong. But it's not the first time that Rand Paul's been wrong.
Yeah, he's trying to use his own circumstance to describe Mullins as a pugilistic, a man of violence.
But isn't he an MMA fighter?
I don't know, man. I wasn't at all unimpressed when, who was it? Was it him and O'Brien when in a hearing, and they're getting ready to get up and go at it. And there's what's my neighbor over here, the old guy there that seems to be a Bernie Sanders. You're not going to fight in the hearing. You're not going to do that. The zombie coming. He's flipping out.
I got 2 pair of underwear.
Bernie in that instance was actually correct. I'll give him that for sure.
Yeah, but it's nice to see some guys that got some backbone for a change and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. I'm so sick and tired of weak men in this country. You understand what I'm saying? It's disgusting to see these guys that can't stand up for something. I've worked with organizations where the women are doing all the work and the men are doing all the talking, act like a bunch of jackwagons. You can sit there and make plans all day long, but if you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is and get the job done, then get out.
True.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we should also talk about how but Republicans too, but Democrats primarily use elections to make money. We saw this election in Illinois where the losing Democrat, Raja Krishnamurthy, who came in second in the Democratic primary, spent $24 million on his failed bid. Wow. And he had a fundraiser. Now, he has $6 million cash in the bank. The election's over. Just had a fundraiser. Domestic beer, $15.34. Premium beer, $18.03. Wine, $21.87. Spirits, $21.87. Isn't it amazing how a cheap bottle of California wine, Boone's Farmer Mad Dog, costs exactly what Jim Beam cost? And water or a soda, $12.85. Yeah. So this guy, this is insane. They use, that's at the Westin. This is what he charged people to come to his event. I mean,
he is trying to raise money. I mean, the concept is
why does he need money? Why does he need money? His campaign spent $24 million. The race is over. Whatever bills he has $6 million in the bank.
What you call a war chest, right? For the next time around, or if you want
is he retiring in debt or something, or what's going on there? I don't go to people who just lost a campaign's fundraiser. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Generally, you lost. Hey, sorry, retire your debt some other way.
Yeah, and look, I'm not voting for Rajesh Kuthrapali. He's not going to be a person I vote for. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Rajesh Krupapali. I love it. We got a little Big Bang Theory over here.
How do you outspend? I mean, first of all, why would you vote for somebody who can't manage the money and they outspend themselves in their campaign? That tells you what they're going to do in Congress, right there.
He didn't outspend. He's got $6 million left over, and he's charging $21 for a beer. I mean, that's or a glass of wine. That's the point. Is that they're out there making money. That this isn't about defending or representing people. It's about their own ego and their own a chance to get near. I think they all want that Nancy Pelosi Visa payoff day where they get handed illicit stock or stock tips so they can become multimillionaires. Look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is worth what, $30 million, and what has she ever done other than marry her brother? I mean, it's the most productive thing she ever did.
I mean, and they've gotten rich since being in Congress to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. Not like mill two, something like that, where you save money, maybe invested wisely, and you've done okay. But tens of millions of dollars. I'm sorry, you're not that wise of an investor. I'm sorry, you're just not.
But I'm surprised, Chris, that you missed her true talent. I mean, after she got squirted with some unknown liquid on her,
that we don't hear about ever again,
and acted out that whole role. I'm sure she qualifies for a low budget B movie.
I did see that movie. I did see her in that movie, and her response was, "I'm melting. Wizard of Oz. Nice. Yes, I did see her in that movie. Yeah. Anyway,
with flying monkeys and everything.
Yeah, no. Anyway, no, look, guys, look, it's crazy. Hey, so have you heard about Starbucks there, Todd? I mean, they want to come to Tennessee. They're fronting, claiming that they're just looking for an office space for a few people, but they're scouting a building that was built in Nashville with 300,000 square feet. They need 250,000 square feet to place 2,000 employees. That's not a local or regional operation. That is the Starbucks headquarters leaving Seattle and coming to Tennessee. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, lucky you, Todd.
Well, we've been very friendly with business, but if you go to Nashville area, I would steer clear of there because it's still controlled by Democrats, and they will run your company into the ground for sure. I would stay out of the Davidson County area, but there's plenty of places around there. Very friendly, very open for business.
But there's this building already exists. It was built last year, completed, 300,000 square feet. They need 250,000, so it's ready made for them. And it's Demon Rats who run Davidson County, so they'll come from Demon Rat Central in Washington State.
Right in.
They'll fit right in, and they'll corrupt that part of Tennessee even worse than it is. But it looks like the Starbucks wants to move to Tennessee. Their iconic Seattle brand is leaving. I wonder how long Boeing will stay up there. If it wasn't for the capital cost of billions of dollars to build factories, they probably would have moved to Omaha or to Wichita, Kansas years ago, because being out there is not working out well for Boeing. They've got all kinds of problems.
Oh, a lot of problems. And the 737 didn't help them for sure a few years ago.
Oh, the Max, the 737 Max. What a disaster that was. Pretty scary stuff. I mean, I flew on those planes with Ethiopian Airlines, and that's one of the ones that flew straight into the ground because of that system a couple of years ago. That's a pretty scary thought. Yeah. So I haven't flown Ethiopian Airways in a while. I'm kind of glad. It's not their fault, but that plane was problematic. Yeah. No, it's if you see the big brouhaha about the great savior, the iconic legend of the Hispanic community, the Chicanos. Cesar Chavez, years after his death, he's being revealed as a sexual pervert, predator, and pedo. Yes. Oh, yeah. In fact, the left is turning on Cesar Chavez. The governors of Texas and Arizona, the left is not in Texas, but the governor of Texas, Arizona, said today they're canceling state celebrations of Cesar Chavez days, and communities across the West are looking to follow suit after stunning new allegations that the late Hispanic civil rights hero groomed and raped women, including young girls who volunteer for his movement. Wow. Now, people question whether this is true, but the reports were bolstered by the shocking revelation, by Dolores Huerta, who co-founded United Farm Workers with Chavez. And she revealed she was forced into sexual encounters with him in the 1960s as an adult. She said both encounters led to pregnancies, and she arranged for the babies to be raised by their families. So there is DNA. So we can prove that that she at least had sex with a guy. But I mean, Cesar Chavez, the hero of the left, is being revealed to be a sexual pervert and predator. Boy, the Democrats, this is just who they are. It's who they are. This iconic.
Sure.
I mean, when I grew up in high school, we learned all about Cesar Chavez and getting rights for the migrant workers in California back in the 60s. Yeah, this creep died in 1993 at the age of 66. You know, creepy Joe Biden even had a bust of him in the Oval Office, and that makes sense. Creepy Joe liked to sniff little girls' hair. It makes sense, you know.
Yeah, that's Joe Biden for you for sure, and apparently Cesar Chavez. Oh,
Apparently, he also liked it when the kids rubbed his hairy legs. Remember?
Yep.
Yeah. What's that all about anyway?
Arizona's Governor Katie Hobbs and Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced their states will no longer celebrate Cesar Chavez Day on March 31st. Now, can we get rid of Juneteenth and make it December 6th when it's supposed to be? Mr. Abbott said he'll also ask the Texas legislature to formally revoke the day in state law. Reports of the horrific and widely acknowledged sexual assault allegations against Cesar Chavez rightfully dismantle the myth of his progressive hero and undermine the narrative that elevated to a figure worthy of official state celebration. Guys, got to take a phone call. I'll be right back.
No problem. Colonel's going to step away there. Folks, you listen to the Common Sense Conservative right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. We help bring you back to reality every week, 7 to 9 Eastern, right here on WSMN. Of course, wsmn.live is also a website you can go check out. We're on a number of social media platforms and to include podcast platforms, so you can check that out. Joined by my co-host, John Grosvenor, who holds down the studio, and Colonel Chris Wyatt in his central PA studio there. John, to you real quick, what are some of your thoughts about Morning Joe, if you will? And whenever I talk about Morning Joe, I'm talking about the MSNBC's, like their flagship show. MSNBC cuts hours from Morning Joe and major network shakeup. MSNBC is slashing an hour from its flagship show program as part of a sweeping overhaul at the beleaguered liberal network, the New York Post reports on Wednesday. What are your thoughts on that, John? Does that just break your heart that
honestly, I got to tell you, my thoughts are, I don't even know who Morning Joe is. I never turn on MSNBC.
Joe Scarborough, the turncoat Republican who served one term, Mika Brzezinski, the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski, the Secretary of State or National Security Advisor under Jimmy Carter, failed administration.
You guys watch way too much TV.
No, I just follow Congress, and I know Joe Scarborough when he's in Congress. And when he left Congress, he sold his soul down the river, and he's a scumbag, and he's been a scumbag ever since. Yep.
I think they sold their soul while they were in there, bro.
Yeah, but he pretended to be conservative with the not Tea Party movement, but back in the 1990s, these guys coming. But Joe Scarborough, what a clown! Hey, there's a chat message here. I'm presuming it's from your YouTube channel that John, someone named Audrey says, in 2024, Trump won all 10 states with the lowest percentage of college graduates. Thumbs up. West Virginia, Alabama, Kentucky, Arkansas. He lost all 10 states with the highest percentage of college graduates. Well, thank you, Audrey, for the useless piece of information. Do you really think that matters? I have multiple university degrees. I'm a published author. I speak 6 languages, and I went to public schools. And I have taught undergraduates and postgraduates. And I really don't give a flip about what states Trump won and what states lost, and about who has an education. I mean, the states with education are the people with the highest education, the ones with the biggest problems. Maryland has the highest percentage of PhDs, and Maryland is a disaster. Once led by a Republican named Bob Ehrlich, building a surplus and reducing taxes and keeping the roads functioning. Now it's a complete disaster under the Democrats. They had another Republican, and he might as well have been a darn Democrat. But under Westmore, it's just a complete disaster right now. They're dumped 6.5 billion gallons of freaking sewage into the Potomac River, killing fish and spreading all kinds of disease because Maryland is run by morons. And these people with all this education doesn't mean anything. California has high percentage of people with degrees. New York, these are all failed states with disaster areas. It doesn't matter if someone has a college education. If you actually are dumb enough to think that a college education and degree makes you smart, well, that explains an awful lot about the comment. Bill Gates never graduated from university, and the guy is a titan of the world. Not a fan of Bill Gates, but a brilliant guy. Plenty of people who neho never went to university are very brilliant.
With Zuckerberg.
Yeah, this. Well, I'm not surprised he didn't finish, but this is a leftist canard. Oh, education. Look, the states with the lowest outcomes, it really doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why it doesn't matter, Audrey. Do you know why it doesn't matter? Because you don't need a PhD to have a vote in this country. You just need to be a citizen. Well, not in California or New York, or Chicago. But yeah, but generally speaking, you have to be a citizen to vote in this country and not a felon. That's all. Doesn't matter what your education level is. And I'm not impressed. See, this is like, when people attack me, Todd, and call me a white supremacist or some other stupid nonsense like that, not knowing what I've done for people in Africa and what I've done for people around the world, and how I don't make a distinction between people based on their skin color, but they just presume it. They project their frailties onto their opponent. And this is here, I don't really care whether Arkansas has the worst education outcomes. I don't live in Arkansas. What I care about is the right direction for this country. And clearly the people with the best education are not achieving that in New York, in California. It really doesn't matter. So I love these non sequiturs people throw out there. It really, I mean, this is such a weak argument. It means jack squat. Anyway,
Right.
I just thought I'd jump in there because I saw the comment.
I
Right,
wasn't
well,
sure
you-
what you was driving at here because I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I felt like you did about it. It's kind of like I don't understand what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah,
It's
what's
a non sequitur. It's what the left does. Whataboutism to distract. Well,
Right.
No, it doesn't matter. Stick to the topic. You want to talk about educational outcomes in America? We can do that. They're very poor. And here we can just talk about educational outcomes. Since the instantiation of the Department of Education, educational outcomes have been on a downward trend in this country across the board, decade after decade. The interference of the federal government in local decisions for education have damaged educational standards. We have gone from teaching kids to think. When Alexis de Tocqueville came to America in the 1820s, and he traveled around this country, he would go to rural farming communities and he would have conversations with farmers who could discuss Locke, who could discuss Montesquieu, who could discuss, the Greek philosophers, Socrates, and have informed discussions about these erudite issues that were important to the educated mind. These were farmers who never went to university. We've gone from a society of educated people who don't have college degrees to a society full of dumbasses who have college degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, who can't string two thoughts together. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable how dumb we've become as a society. The stupid stuff to believe, like this whole situation with Trump and the South African refugee program. Oh, it's a racial program. All the nonsense that came out because Reuters ran this clickbaiting story to talk about South Africans going back to South Africa because they were frustrated with the cost of living in America. And then, of course, it was written for the dummies in the audience to go, oh, the refugees are coming back. Not a single one of the 3,490 refugees who've come to America since May 12th of last year has returned to South Africa. But that doesn't stop people like, what's this guy, Sawyer Hackett, and the humanist from running these bogus stories. I watched this humanist video, this guy with 775,000 subscribers and a college degree who goes on there and has a bunch of leftists list him. It's a 12-minute video. I couldn't get through 3 minutes. I had to go back and stop it repeatedly for the 6 bold-faced lies that he told in the first 3 minutes. And then these people are so stupid, and their audience is so stupid, these college degrees. He puts up evidence to support his case. One of the pieces of evidence he puts up in the first 3 minutes, well, look at this report. The U.S. government's own data says that only white South Africans are coming to America under Trump this fiscal year. No, the screenshot is a leftist channel that took the first page of the monthly report that comes out. And in that report, it shows right there the state. First of all, it doesn't tell you the race of people. That report doesn't tell you that. And almost everybody did come from South Africa. But right there on the image he shows on the screen, Colorado, Afghanistan, 3 people. Well, there you go. Then he says Trump brought these people over here because of genocide. That's not what the executive order says. It's because of racial persecution, and which is not genocide. And the U.S. Embassy website, which is freely available since the 10th of February 2025, it's still there. So all these people with education don't impress me because many of them are dumber than a box of rocks, Audrey. So your non sequitur and your whataboutism aren't going to work here. You see, we think, we engage, we understand critical thinking skills. We look at a situation and we don't assume somebody is gay because they dance around with their wrists like this. Maybe they just got limp wrists because they got weak wrist muscles. Maybe they're not gay. Maybe they're not homosexual because they look that way. Maybe they're not a racist because they're this color or that color. Maybe they're not this way. We think critically. We analyze things. That's what conservatives do. You lot on the left with your whataboutism are brain dead, impressed by little titles. Ooh, you know what? I'm the Viceroy of Greenland. That should impress you. Next question.
Folks, the opinions expressed was of the Viceroy of Greenland, Colonel Chris Wyatt. Oh, I love it. Yeah, get him going on something there. That's but you're not wrong for sure. Let that be a lesson, folks. I mean, we do our research. Certainly not racist, and we look into things before we form an opinion. Some people just throw out, oh, it's this, so therefore it must be this. No, let's look into it. There's more to it behind the surface, if you will, underneath the surface.
But Todd, we're not even talking about educational outcomes. This was a conversation tonight about blood clots, and now about politics in the country. This is what they do to pollute the argument, and I'm fine talking about it because it just gives us another chance to expose the level of stupidity. This is the argument they bring. Look, if we're having a conversation about educational outcomes in America, great, throw that out there. Okay. But also, Trump's been in office for a year. What does that have to do with the educational outcomes in these places? Here's the other thing. It's like the dumb argument. Remember the great Southern strategy and the switch, how all the racists became Republicans. No, they're still Democrats. They still vote Democrat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. They talk about all these politicians who were Democrat racists who became Republicans. Other than Strom Thurmond, name them. There's less than one handful of prominent politicians across the South who switched parties and became Republicans. Strom Thurmond being the most prominent one of them, a 2-star general from World War II who stayed in the Senate for 9,000 years. It just doesn't exist. Dinesh D'Souza has destroyed this myth over and over and over again. But these people, that's all they have. They have no intellectual capacity. They just throw these non sequiturs that have nothing to do with the argument of the day because that's who they are. They're weak-minded children.
Well, I was thinking maybe there's some 16-year-old girl named Audrey that was on my YouTube channel going, whoa, should open up that box of worms.
Well, if Audrey is 16 years old, I will apologize to Audrey because she has not had time to develop her brain. She's still growing. She's still learning. And if Audrey is a 16-year-old girl, I will apologize to Audrey. But what Audrey did is a typical leftist canard. It has no bearing on the conversation whatsoever. And it never should have been thrown in there. But since you brought it out, you opened up the discussion. You opened the can of worms, and I'm opening the can of whoop butt.
Hey, it happens, it comes with the territory. I do see a lot where people regurgitate things they see, and it seems kind of smart, right? So they want to engage in a conversation with people, and they'll just regurgitate something they've seen, but they don't have the information to back it up, and so they get themselves into a trap.
Unrelated to the argument or the discussion at hand, but then what they'll do, they'll throw in whataboutism to try to get a leg up on you. They can't win over here, so they'll throw what about this? And they know they got you. They know they got you on a certain point.
That's to drag you into a conversation that they're supposed to be well equipped.
You shouldn't come to an intellectual conversation armed with gummy bears.
There you go. Yeah. Right, for sure. So speaking of politics, Republican Senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott, said he will run for re-election one more time in 2028. I guess he had said 2022 was his last campaign. Has decided he would run for one more term. He is 60 years old, so he's got plenty of time for sure, especially as a senator. I mean, some of those cases over there, man, are 90 years old. Some of those folks, man, they are the crypt keeper for sure. So Senator Tim Scott, as we reported here about a year or so ago, that he wasn't going to run again, will run again in 2028. So
wow, he's 60. I had no idea he was 60 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
I think Chris likes to think that 60 years young, not so much as 60 years old.
I don't know. I'm 59 again this year, so what I care.
59. I forgot. That's right. You stopped aging.
That's right.
I'm still telling people I'm in my prime. So
I do subscribe to Prime. It's getting a bit pricey.
Right.
Speaking of non sequiturs,
as I'm scrolling here, why does Newsmax or anybody still care what John Bolton thinks? I don't get that. He's still writing articles, I guess. People still publish him.
Look, the only time I want to hear his name is I want to hear an indictment. The only time I want to hear John Brennan's name is an indictment. Those people need to be indicted for their crimes against society. That's what I want to hear. Did you see that some Republicans are subpoenaing Pam Bondi to come in and talk about the Epstein files? Obviously, they want a topic for their reelection campaign. Why are we talking about Epstein? We should be talking about the Department of Homeland Security not being funded and about the national debt and about Iran. That's what we should be focused on, not the Epstein files. I mean, this is ridiculous. These people are just obsessed with this stuff because they think it's an election year topic. It's going to get them votes.
Well, the left has leaned on it so hard and tried to take the right talking points. I think they probably want to go for that middleman, independent voter. That's what the left is trying to do right now.
Yeah,
but find that center lane strategy and rope them in, and it's probably.
But who other than a small-minded lunatic actually cares about this topic anymore? The documents have been released. The more documents get released, the more they complain that they aren't being released. And all the names coming out are foreign leaders and Democrats for the most part. They're the ones being exposed. So just if you want to talk about the Epstein files, talk about all the Democrats that keep getting exposed and resigning from boards and from Harvard and from institutions and and past members of the Obama administration and Biden administration. Talk about that. Well, you don't need to. I mean, I don't get this whole thing. Look, again, I've talked about this. There is nothing to be done. Epstein is gone. She's in jail. The only thing people can possibly hope to get, because no one's going to be prosecuted.
No one's going to be prosecuted. I agree.
The statute of limitations has expired on many of these crimes. Many of the crimes, the statute of
I
limitations have
don't
expired.
think there's a statute of limitations if you engage in sexual activity and human trafficking with a minor.
Well, human trafficking and perversion of a minor or sexual misconduct with a minor are very different charges. Human trafficking is a federal charge.
Also, it matters
so that-
where are you going to charge them to? Where did it originate from, and did it enter the U.S. as well? You got to look at that as
Well,
well.
if it
So-
was on
it's
the
Virgin
island, it's
Islands.
U.S.
It's
territory.
Virgin Islands. So yes, it was U.S.
well, that
territory.
is, yeah, correct. You're
So,
correct.
so the thing of it is, guys, is if they were really going to prosecute, they would probably have given witness protection to these young girls that were victims that were willing to give testimony, but retracted on it and decided they didn't want to give testimony. And the suspicion is their lives were being threatened, and they were offered NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, for not saying anything. But non-disclosure agreements do not qualify in a court of law. That only qualifies in civil society.
Well,
Sure.
but like you're talking about here, so I've just confirmed here, it's a state crime. It only becomes a federal crime if it involves sexual assault, rape, possession of child pornography, distribution of child pornography. But having sex with a minor is not a federal crime. Therefore, there's no federal charge there, and that's the bottom line.
If it's human trafficking, it may be a different
But
case.
human
If you know they are being trafficked.
But having sex with a minor is not human trafficking,
Well-
and proving that they were involved in human trafficking is not a simple task given the time expired and the evidence. Obviously, if they had it, you would expect some charge against somebody at this point. But the point here is that these people are not going to be charged with crimes. So the best outcome here is remuneration for those who suffered. And that's where the focus should be, is recouping money from the Epstein estate to pay off the victims of his crimes and get them the care that they need and compensate them in some way. The money is there. That's where the focus should be. But no, we want to play this game. Trump is not releasing I'm sick of it because the focus is in the wrong place. If people really care about the victims, they would be draining that estate and giving that money to the people.
Make no doubt about it. The left don't give two craps about those victims.
No, they don't.
That is a political move, a political strategy, and that is all that is to them.
It's a strategy for many on the right too that they use during the campaigns. And they'll use it to their advantage if they can and get one more time. But the victims aren't going to see justice for sure. It's sad.
No, like I said, the victims could have gave testimony, in which case they decided to pull off. They contradicted themselves and says, "I just don't want to talk about it anymore. I got kids to raise. I got this to do," and they wouldn't give testimony. And as far as I know, they weren't offered any witness protection or anything. Maybe it wasn't worth the while because, as Chris said, and if Chris is right in his assessment of things, then there's very little they can do to prosecute anyway.
Okay, so let's just get this settled right here. Chris is always right, so I don't know why you're questioning.
I don't know. We got a conflict there because I'm always right. Problem is, I'll admit I'm not an attorney, so I can't really speak confidently when it comes.
Listen, I watched 3 episodes of Perry Mason from season 1 before I came on tonight, so I'm set.
Oh, you got that covered, huh? Season 1, that was back. What was that? Was that
57?
I was gonna say yeah, I was gonna say late 1950s.
It's amazing how good the film quality is for those black and white shows, and then you watch 1980s movies or like to watch the first Terminator, and the copies of it are so grainy and poor, and that's a Hollywood movie. It's just amazing to me that they preserve the Perry Mason episodes and Andy Griffith. Those episodes are all really in perfect conditions too when you watch them. Not that I watch Andy Griffith, but I remember watching as a kid. But the Perry Mason, I'm watching streaming. It's like it's fantastic quality. But yeah, that was a long time ago.
Most of those were in black and white too, and maybe that has a lot to do with the difference in it.
It probably does, but the way the thing is filmed and the way it's preserved has something to do with it too. So that's a big project around the world trying to preserve early 20th century recordings because the type of film they used. They just recently found a couple more episodes, and the BBC is going to air this restored episodes, 2 episodes of Doctor Who from the 1960s that were lost. And there's still like 95 episodes missing because the BBC erased the tapes, the morons.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the early Doctor Who is just gone. It's gone. Now, occasionally they find stuff, like they found a collector had, pirated copies of it back in the 1960s in Australia. And so they found a few episodes years ago. The last major discovery was in Nigeria in 2013 when they came across 13 episodes, I think it was, or 9 or 13 episodes from the 1960s in a television relay station that had the tapes, and they restored them. So now they found 2 more episodes, and one of the doctor's first companions is 87 now. He's still around, and he is all excited. He said, "Well, 2 more of the 27 episodes that I'm in that are missing have been found." So it's good to see. But
that is cool.
the doctor, of course, William Hartnell died a long time ago, back in the 70s or 80s. I think it was the 70s or 80s. But his co-star was a young man, and he's still around, and he's in his late 80s now. And of course, Tom Baker, the most famous of the Doctor Who's, is 93 now. He's still kicking from the 1970s.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah, kind of like how they have the moon landing tapes, where it's basically recorded, I think, through Australia or somewhere, a relay station. How they have in any sort of original, if you will, because NASA, their version, they erased it because they would reuse these tapes over and over because they were so expensive.
No, wait, you talking about the one in the studio?
Yeah, the one that they had in, yeah, I guess in NASA recording it or whatever.
I was cracking a wise remark.
Yeah, no, but I think
everybody says it was fake, and
yeah, the one that they recorded, it has been lost or deleted. Of course, I think the copies that they have out there was from a relay station that was recording it, and that's how they have anything from the original moon landing.
Oh wow,
yeah, something like that. So final joke here. This is according to Zohar Mamdani. Of course, he's the mayor of New York City. Immigration judge orders deportation of New York City Council employee after ICE arrest. City leaders push back. An immigration judge has ordered the deportation of former New York City Council employee. Federal officials said in January was an undocumented immigrant with a prior assault arrest. City Council Speaker Julie Menon announced the deportation ruling on Wednesday, condemning it as a miscarriage of justice and wholly deplorable, end quote, and pledging to fight back by filing an appeal. So we see which side of the fence that they're on. They'll stand up for people who came here. Mind you, it was under a visa to just basically be a tourist. They overstayed that, and somehow you're going to stand up for this person for doing the wrong thing, even though they're in our country assaulting people, amongst other things. You're going to stand up for this guy. I'm sorry, he needs to go. But this is the New York City Council, folks, who they stand up for. They'll stand up for the people throwing bombs right outside of Gracie Manor, terrorists. But they won't actually stand up for New Yorkers, for sure.
Well, did I get that wrong when that first happened? Were they trying to blame that on the right or something like that? And there was an attack against Mom Donnie, and then they realized, oh wait, this was an ISIS attack, or an ISIS like or associated in some.
They realized he's a Muslim, I guess, but I don't know how radicalized the person is or who radicalized them. Not really the point. They're certainly not MAGA Republicans from the right throwing these bombs. That's for sure.
Right. Well, no, he was throwing them at the Republicans because it was a Republican event, right?
There were Republicans there protesting as well.
Yeah,
I think a counter protest. Yeah.
So he threw the bombs for the Republicans.
Right, but if you remember, they were originally trying to report that it was Republicans who brought it, and then they had to figure that one out. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Yes.
Yeah, they lied about that for sure. So
they lied. Shocker.
Yeah. So final minute, round the horn. Anything, gentlemen?
Well, quick one here for you. I heard about this illegal alien, 18-year-old, who the media portraying as a teen. Yes, he's a teen, 18, but 18-year-old criminal alien evader who murdered a 75-year-old grandmother in a hit and run in Arizona. Pima County Sheriff, County Superior Court Judge Danielle Constant sentenced the 18-year-old illegal alien Alexis Eduardo Ibarro Guerrero to 2.5 years behind bars with 100 days in prison already served. So he won't even spend 2.5 years there. He doesn't have a driver's license. He was driving a 2010 Chevy Camaro on November 3rd when he struck caregiver Sally Alcarez Rodriguez, 75, in Tucson as she was walking to a bus stop. And he drove for several blocks with her body atop his vehicle, then stopped, dropped it off, and left her to die on the side of the road. And he gets 2.5 years for illegal aliens, shouldn't even be in this country. And of course, it's a leftist, white, female, woke judge who gave this guy 2.5 years. This judge should be recalled. And the next person that he murders should be tacked on her when he gets out of prison. This is what happens when you let criminals in your country. If he was in this country driving illegally, the woman would be alive today.
Right. Absolutely. To me, that's a vehicle manslaughter, and you should go to jail for life.
Well, there's a minimum 4-year sentence. She violated the state minimums. There's a minimum sentence of 4 years for this conduct. She only gave him 2.5. She should be recalled. She should be removed from the bench because she can't follow sentencing guidelines. Simple as that.
All right, but she gets protection with this grandmother. She gets the cold ground. That's for sure.
Yeah.
John?
All I can say with the last 20 seconds that we have left is that Groyper movement's got to go, man. It's not doing good for us at all. I don't know if you've been following the Groypers, but they're anti-Israel, and I've seen so many conservatives, people that were mega, are getting into this Groyper movement. You guys should check up on this stuff. Maybe we can get into this deeper on some future shows. But right now they're dividing us. and it's Nick Fuentes is who I'm talking about, Chris, if you're looking it up. And it's Groyper, Groyper, also known as Groyper Army, as he likes to call it. So yeah, definitely want to look into that. And we are at the end, Todd.
All right, folks, we'll be back next week, 7 to 9 Eastern, right here, WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. Until then, God bless.